Hello, and welcome to Conversations Inspired by the White Card at GableStage. My name is Christie, and today I have the pleasure of talking with Lydia Fort, who is the director for the White Card. Welcome, Lydia. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hello, hello, hello. Nice to be here with you.
Yeah, so I just want to take a little bit of time to start by getting to understand a little bit about what brought you to being a director or a theater maker.
So like so many people, I'm sure, I came to doing theater at a very young age through acting, and fell in love with the opportunity to be able to be people other than myself. And I just got excited about the various worlds and possibilities that I could explore that way. I think I grew up in a time period when there weren't many opportunities for Black women, such as myself, in terms of roles, and that wasn't exciting to me. So I kind of laid low from acting for a while until I just couldn't stay away from theater any longer. And then through a series of circumstances, figured out that directing was actually where I needed to be.
Nice. Yeah. I have probably a little bit of a similar, as you named, sort of like loving being in the theater and playing other characters, but not really finding the material. That was very much my experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell me what interested you in the White Card.
I think the first and foremost thing was Claudia, right? Her poetry is pretty amazing, and in such a way that I felt like I was reading my own inner voice, or someone who was seriously plugged into the things that were on my mind and that I'd been thinking about or struggling with or concerned with. And so her voice just felt very much in line with thoughts, questions, things that I wanted to be talking about and exploring. And I had, like many people, had come to her through her piece Citizen, an American Lyric. Poetry is not my jam, not like I have anything, about poetry. It's just wasn't something that I learned anything about. But Citizen was the beginning. And I think the opportunity, simply when I heard the words, it's Claudia Rankine's new play, that was all I needed.
Yeah.
It's fine. Okay, great. Whatever it is, I'm down.
Yeah, that's great. I love how you put that sort of like, that her voice is sort of like hearing your own thoughts. You put it so much better than like I've ever been able to put it into words, but I think that's so much been my experience as well. Like it just feels so natural, like a part of me, I think. So yeah.
And there's even that point of like, just the first few pages of her latest piece, literally I felt like, okay, I have to close this and put it down.
Wow.
Because it just felt like, oh, you're talking about the very thing that's like taboo for me to be dealing with, and it's just too personal, and I'm still really raw around that thing. And so necessary, right? Like able to like hear parts of me and confront parts of me. It's just, her work is just necessary.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. So what do you think, why do you think it's important to have a Black director work on a Black story or a story written by a Black writer?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Do we have time for this one?
Yes.
There's so many things that I could say about it. Really, truly. I think that, and I want to say about it, so I'll try to be short. In an ideal world, long after I'm gone, I'm sure anyone will be able to direct or work on anybody's piece, no matter what their background is. Unfortunately, because of the world that we live in and all of the history that hasn't been attended to, we aren't at a place yet where that's possible. And I think that we first have to deal with correcting past errors in order to be able to get to that place where we can do whatever excites us, inspires us, gets us going. But until that time, we need to be able to have African American people from African descent do work so that the voice is authentic to the experience, as opposed to being through the lens of someone else. Why? Because that lens is still off. Right. I don't care how much you love, respect, want to be with, enjoy. Absolutely. I know a director, a very famous director whose work I admire and will always, always, always adore this individual. And it came up around people directing work that is not their own. And I said, I adored what they did. And I couldn't think of anybody better to do a work or this work. And I would never say anything, about them not doing it. I just know that we need the opportunity to speak our own narratives, stage our own narratives,
Right.
Make visible conversation around our own narratives first.
Yeah. And I think that's actually like really where a lot of it is at, like the opportunity to really like lengthen and grow and deepen our understanding and perspectives, and actually hear, like, understand these stories through the lens of the people who've experienced them. And I really appreciate like the way that you're expressing that there's that this is a progression. Mm-hmm. And that once we all work through this together, there will be a time where we can have that freedom that everyone seeks.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So just switching gears a little bit, tell me a little bit about your thoughts about this sea change that's happening in the National Theater.
Oh, you've caught me on a day, I have to say. For a very long time, I'd been feeling like there's a couple of things that needed to change. And one of them was that theater needed to be returned to the public sphere in a way that served communities. The conversation around theater as high art is fine, but definitely quickly, depending on who we're talking to, right? Becoming like opera, right? That idea that like it is further and further removed from the average person. And I always like to use my sister and my niece, right, as that individual when I think very specifically about someone who don't have any interest in it because it's just not anything that is of interest, right? Like, and so just think about how many people feel the same way, right? That then who are we then speaking to? Who then are we making theater for? Yeah. And, you and I both know that there is theater happening in communities. There is theater that's speaking directly to specific populations, and that is tremendous. And the work is amazing, but it's in pockets, right? And then there was that thing that happened where funders decided that it was great if they could support theater's work to reach communities. And then we found ourselves in a period of time where large organizations, because they had track records, were getting that money to do the work that companies that were doing it all along and smaller and didn't have track records and, all of that goes with it, were getting shut out. And so that created this, what's the word I need? When like there's two opposing forces, right? Like there's a C word, sorry guys, that they're
converging.
No, they're kind of
that would be
fighting with each other a little bit, right? Contention.
Yes.
And I think that there are groups that found ways around that, trying to do things that had longevity, weren't one-offs, all of those things that were problematic. But then COVID happened. Yeah. And then we found ourselves in this period where theater companies, seemingly woke up to the joys of working with artists in their communities, right?
Right.
Oh, look, we have no choice now, but we have to. But then there was a joy around that. Like, oh, right, we should be serving the artists who live here. We should be serving the communities who are close to us. And so then that became a thing. Then there was the accessibility issue, the piece about who can get to the theater, who can't get to the theater, who gets left out. Why aren't we reconciling those differences? So I think COVID opened the door for those kinds of conversations. And naturally, in that, right, the We See You White American Theater movement happened. That was like, hello, we need to address all of these wrongs in this specific field that we work in. And like all things, yeah, it's the beginning. Right. In where I live now, I live in Atlanta. And so Atlanta had its moment of reckoning where voices were finally able to speak directly to persons who were at institutions and making decisions, and also obviously because they attended, open and interested in learning. But again, beginnings, right? One time is only the opportunity for people to express their hurt, their pain.
Right.
That's it. Second time, then we get to move to another layer. Third time, then that party needs to speak. And then fourth time, both parties need to reconcile. I'm mad at, have energy with, around.
Yeah.
We're only up to 4.
Yeah.
So how many more conversations need to happen? And that means that people have to have the energy, the tolerance for discomfort, the ability to have foresight in imagining futures, to be able to say, I'm willing to be in this for the long haul. Yeah. And that we know these things take time. And we also have to recognize that system that we live in that regards money, lives by, dictated by, and the systems in place by which theater gets made in this country, and those that are secretly in power, but we don't ever think of them, right? Those board members who contribute and with their money have influence. And so that party needs to come into this mix, and they haven't yet. Right. And so and we know people who are working on this. I'm not saying that it isn't happening, but I mean in a very large scale kind of way, because then they have to take ownership of the very same things.
Yeah.
So I think it is great. I think it is fabulous. But I will say what I say to my students is that there have always been movements for change, yes? But then those in power find ways to readjust, realign, to keep their power.
Yeah.
And so we have to figure out how to foresee where powers might try to keep control of power as time is changing. Yeah. Right? Because the ultimate change that we seek won't be cemented until we do that, or until the value systems change.
Yeah.
Right. Until those values change, then it will be easier.
Yeah.
But we have to do a lot to, I'm not sure how to phrase this next part. Like, how do you infiltrate those systems with people who are ready to make change?
Right.
That will influence and affect their power.
Right.
Yeah. That's
and
hard.
how do we make sure those people are supported in those spaces so that the change can occur without mass turbulence?
Yes. I was just sharing, I have a student that I know not really well, but like he's been in one of my classes and I so respect, getting ready to telling his business, just got accepted to a PhD program, fully paid. It's so awesome. It's amazing. And what is he studying? the use of words and the power and how we shape language. And I'm right
Yes. Oh, wow.
blown away by the awareness of um, and the courage, really, to think about going to the core, one of, right, cores of how we can change our narrative,
Yeah. Right.
but also because we know what power words have in constructing society, right? He's actually working on reconstructing society ultimately.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
Isn't it? Isn't it? Don't you just
Oh,
want to be
God.
a student? I know I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, I can't, I hope I can hear more about that at some point.
Yeah, I'm
That's
like, sign
amazing.
me up when you first teach your class. I'll be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Well, I
amazing.
mean, gosh, I think that thank you for that's such a really great sort of analysis of this journey and really like where we are today and how really exciting it is, right? That we're at the very beginning of this change um and just like you mentioned, like how long this journey is going to be and the hope and the sort of like, I know you and I have talked about this, but just really, really hoping that people are in it for that long haul and can understand,
Yes.
um, yeah,
Yes.
and can take care of themselves through it,
Yes.
so that we can get to this place.
Yes.
Um, yeah,
And I know, that I have a big brain, and some folks are probably already zoning out. But I think, you know, our society is constructed so that we have baubles and fun things to kind of keep us occupied, and not, or maybe not even that, maybe issues and struggles and problems and bills and difficulties and all kinds of things that keep us from being able to be self-reflective and to uh, consider the world in this kind of way. And so I'm, am aware that um, this isn't just a fight for big brains. Yeah, it's a fight for
right,
all of us.
yeah, yeah,
And no one is in any better position than another, right?
right,
To fight.
yeah. I think that's really a great way to move into this last question, which is, what do you hope that people will learn and or get from coming to see the white card?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing really is that courage to be able to say there is something at fault
Right.
within and without, and that's okay. Yeah, we're afraid to be at fault, or that there's something misaligned, or like we just don't want that.
Right.
But what if we said that that's fine?
Right.
What if
Right.
we acknowledge that there is something better than this construct that we've created, because we're all, for our sci-fi friends, we've all selected to swallow a certain pill.
Right. Right.
And so, yeah, that reality is so much more enjoyable. But what if the other thing, which seems harder, is actually better?
Right. Right. And can we learn to live with, tolerate, move through this discomfort so that we can
Right,
find what's on the other side rather than
right,
have that discomfort
right,
stop the conversation, stop the everything,
right. Because right
Yeah.
now, why would anyone? Why bother doing the work at all if I can just do what I normally do, whatever that is, and the world seems perfectly fine for me? So why would I enter into something that is tenuous and difficult and challenging, and then I have to be uncomfortable? So somehow we have to be able to make going in that direction worthwhile.
Right.
And the only thing that I can say, the only thing that I can offer is that it's what I wanted to do with the cast. I wanted to do with the cast what Claudia was asking of the audience. And these are a group of people who I adore. Adore. And we had so much fun. Who would think working on this material could be fun? Who could think making these hard discoveries could be fun?
Yeah.
And if there's any way to communicate that, I know it's not in, like, there's no subtitle thing across the bottom of the stage that says that this was fun to make.
Yeah.
And it could be fun for you to go through your own version.
Right.
Um,
But there's something that actually does bring a joy of it. There's like you begin to feel empowered, and while
mhm,
it's complicated and difficult, there is something very invigorating about feeling like you're moving to this other
mhm,
place
mhm,
that we all believe so much we can have.
mhm. You could be empowered or you could let things go, which is empowering too, right?
Right.
Whatever that baggage is that you're holding on to, you could toss that aside and discover, I have so much more freedom
Yeah.
to notice or do or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, I mean, I'm so grateful for the time you've spent with us, and I could talk to you
I,
for hours and hours. I think we probably will. We've got
yeah.
some time during the run, but really excited for people to come out and see what you've done with the white card. I know it's going to do just what you are hoping. Um, I know I've already developed some extra courage with my engagement and connection with you and the cast, and it's just this process. So, um, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining us and
Yeah.
being with us.
And I'll just have a shout out for you to say how amazing you are. So
Thanks.
please, I
Thank
hope
you.
if you're watching, come and hang out with our beautiful Katie when you can, because you are awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we're gonna have fun processing this production together after each show. So, thanks for reminding me to invite people, Lydia. Yes. Um, thank you all so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at the White Card.